Okay, welcome back. We're going to do Daf Dalid. We're going to do the fourth block today, but we start literally at the bottom of Daf Gimel Amud Beis. So it's the last paragraph, the last two lines in the Gemara, Daf Gimel Amud Beis. If you remember, what we discussed last week was that we were talking about Stam Mishnah, right? So we were saying we're trying to figure out Stam Mishnah. In which scenarios, right? We were talking about who goes according to which Stam Mishnah, and we were talking specifically about Rabbi Yochanan, that he goes according to the Stam Mishnah. That's what we were talking about. But what we came up with is that Rabbi Yochanan doesn't hold like this Stam Mishnah, but he holds like another Stam Mishnah, right? And that's where we ended off. That Rabbi Yochanan holds like a different Stam Mishnah. Stam Mishnah means a Mishnah that doesn't have a name connected to it. Sorry, that's what we're going to learn today. Today we're going to learn that other Stam Mishnah that Rabbi Yochanan holds. So Elai Stam Ashkach, we found another Stam Mishnah that could be according to, that Rabbi Yochanan could go according to, and what we're looking to find is the halacha that lav shein by ma'isa and like in a love, that a transgression that doesn't have any action involved with it, meaning that it's a transgression, but you didn't have to do any action to transgress, meaning you just sat on the couch and something happened, right? So slav shein b'maisa, you don't get malchus, you don't get lashes for that. So he has another Stam Mishnah, and it goes like this: Shvuos shelo yoichal kikar zu. If someone makes a statement, makes a oath, makes a commitment, swear, an oath, right? And he says, I will not eat this loaf of bread, and he repeats himself and he says, I swear I won't eat it, right? So now he made two oaths, seemingly, and he goes ahead and eats. So the halacha is, the Mishnah, this Stam Mishnah says he's only liable one set of lashes, right? Even though he made two comments, but still it was about one thing, and only one of the oaths actually take hold. You can't say that both oaths take hold, right? Only one of the oaths will take hold, not both. So that is the Zuhish was bitui shechayav and alzdoino makes while she gasa carbon related. The Mishnah continues and it says this is something called Shvuos bitui, which is actually something that we started talking about with the beginning of our Mishnah. The whole Masechta is called Shevuos, which is based on this concept of Shvuos bitui. Shvuos bitui is a oath that a person makes, right? And on this oath, if someone makes it bizadon, which means if someone does it on knowingly, meaning he was warned, etc., so then he has to bring. He gets lashes, and if he did it inadvertently by mistake, what does he have to bring? He brings that special carbon oil yoted, that carbon depending on someone's financial level.
I have a question to ask you. When it gives you the examples of the oath, it gives a quotation and it says, this I will not eat, or this bread I will not eat. You don't have to mention Hashem's name in the oath?
No.
Even if you do not mention Hashem's name, it's still an oath.
We're going to be learning in this Masechta all about oaths. So there's a different type of oaths. There are oaths that you use Hashem's name, and there are oaths, and that would be more holy oaths, or something that they're going to, let's say, witnesses that they come to a bezdin. So in that,
I understand.
But no, this is just talking about someone making an oath, making a commitment, so to speak. I promise I will. That kind of thing. Yeah.
Or won't.
Doesn't it? Or won't. Right. Or won't. Or did and won't, which is the Shtaim Shein Arba of our Mishnah. Exactly. Yeah. So it's not necessarily connected. The contrary, someone who, God forbid, uses Hashem's name in this, that's like Sis Hashem Hashav. That's one of the 10 Commandments, not to use Hashem's name in vain. Because what does Hashem's name have to do with you eating a piece of bread? Leave Hashem out of it. Right? Even if you want to make it like. The concept is that someone wants to make it very, very serious. The bread is let's say someone's having an issue with eating, and someone says, but you really have to eat. So it's okay. I promise I'll eat this bread for supper tonight, right? But to say Hashem's name is Hashem's name in vain in that. That's one of the Ten Commandments, not to say Hashem's name. We don't use it unless it's something specific that we do use it for. Okay. So, but yeah, that's actually one of the things that we will be learning throughout this chapter. And I was thinking, because I saw a sefer on this Masechta that's brought up before going into the Masechta, all the different types of oaths, just that way you're clear before going in. So maybe it's something that we should do at some point, or maybe at the end to recap all the different oaths, because the Torah mentions all the different oaths. So it's important to recognize them, and I mean that's what the Masechta is all about, or mostly about. Okay, so now, so that was the Mishnah. The Mishnah talks about someone that makes a commitment that he will, or that he won't eat the bread, and he does eat it, right? But he makes two shvuos, he makes two promises. So then if he does it on purpose, he can get lashes. If he does it inadvertently, so then he gets a korban. He has to bring a sacrifice, an elevated sacrifice. So the Gemara continues and says, "Zu he the chayav and alzdeina makis aval oichal v'lo yochal v'lo lucky." So he says, this is a Stam Mishnah. The Mishnah says that it's only if he says it on the future, so that he'll get lashes. But if so the Gemara is Medayik, and the Gemara learns out from there that if he says it on the past, he won't get, right? Which brings us to the conclusion that Lav Shein Bei Maisa Ein Loikin. So that is the way the Gemara comes and brings a Stam Mishnah that the Rabbi Yochanan could hang his hat on, so to speak. So Michdi, the Gemara asks, well, let us see. What's going on over here, right? What's the concept of a Stam Mishnah? When we talk about a Stam Mishnah, what's the concept of a Stam Mishnah? The concept of a Stam Mishnah is that generally the halacha is like a Stam Mishnah. Right, and we learned a halacha. So if you have a Stam Mishnah, it's very powerful, right? But here we have two Stam Mishnahs, and they argue with each other. How could the Rebbe? This is really a question on Rebbe, as you're going to see about in a moment. That how could the Rebbe create a scenario? It's one thing if you have an opinion of Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Yishmael, and they're arguing. Fine, that's part of that's the system of the Mishnah. But within the system of Mishnah is when you have a Stam Mishnah is not like a Stam Mishnah. So how could you have two Stam Mishnahs and they seem to be arguing with each other, right? And also, when we talk about today, Rabbi Yochanan, why do we say that Rabbi Yochanan is going according to this Stam Mishnah and not the other Stam Mishnah, right? We're saying that Rabbi Yochanan comes to the conclusion that Lav Shem might say like in a love based on Stam Mishnah. Why did he go according to the other Stam Mishnah? Rabbi Yochanan could choose now because he goes according to the Stam Mishnah. And according to the question of the Gemara, that why does Rabbi Yochanan go according to this Stam Mishnah and not according to the other Stam Mishnah? So look at Tameich. Rabbi Gufe, hey, he saw some law and hachi. Rabbi, when he created the Mishnayos, why did he put two Stam Mishnahs that argue with each other? Right? Ella. So the Gemara answers, very interesting. Meikara Savar Lav Shein Bei Maisa like in a love. The Rebbe originally was of the opinion that Lav Shein Bei Maisa you could get lashes, right? Originally, when he started redacting, when he started putting together the Mishnah and started putting together the Mishnayos, he thought that's the halacha, and therefore he put in a Stam Mishnah originally, an earlier Stam Mishnah, where we learn from there that Lav Shein Bei Maisa do get lashes, and Ustama, and therefore he made a Stam Mishnah that way. V'hadar, and then later on, he reversed his opinion. Rabbi reversed his opinion, and Savar in like in a love that Lav Shein Bei Maisa, how can you give lashes if he didn't do any action, right? It's Stama, and therefore he made a Stam Mishnah like this. Mishnah and he can't move the Mishnah doesn't change. Why? Many people have already studied this Mishnah. This Mishnah has already became part of the lexicon of the sages of the day that they were learning the Mishnah. So you can't start changing that Mishnah. So therefore, you always have to keep in mind that if there's two Stam Mishnahs, which one do you go according to? The second one. The second one, that's the underline of the Gemara over here, the undernote of the Gemara over here. Yes, Rebbe put two Stam Mishnahs, but if there was a change later on, it means that Rebbe changed. He changed his opinion. And if he changed his opinion, we go according to the second one, which means, and therefore you also have Rabbi Yochanan. Where does Rabbi Yochanan go according to? He goes according to Stam Mishnah. Well, obviously, which Stam Mishnah is he going to go according to? He's going to go according to the second Stam Mishnah, because that's the halacha. Okay. Now, we're going to go back to an idea that we discussed earlier, and we were discussing who our Mishnah goes according to, right? We mentioned this in last week's class, that who does our Mishnah go according to? And we were arguing, does it go according to Rabbi Yochanan? Rabbi Kiva or Rabbi Yishmael, right? Does it go according to Rabbi Kiva or Rabbi Yishmael? And we came to the conclusion, the Gemara comes to the conclusion that it is according to Rabbi Yishmael. Okay, so now the Gemara is going to go back to this. So we are at, Mayu Kimton. The Gemara asks, how do we come to this conclusion? How do we come to this conclusion that the Mishnah is Rabbi Yishmael u lemalkis? How do we come to the conclusion that our Mishnah is going according to, meaning what's our Mishnah? Our Mishnah is the Shtaim Shein Arba, right? The different scenarios of Shtaim Shein Arba, right? And we came to a conclusion that it's according to Rabbi Yishmael. So how do you come to such a conclusion that it's according to Rabbi Yishmael? And that it's talking about getting lashes, right? If you do it on purpose, you get lashes. Inadvertent, the Mishnah says you got to bring a carbonite l'biyayit, right? That's sacrifice. But if you did it on purpose, you could get lashes. If you get warned, etc., right? So the Gemara asks, Maris Negoyim, my Malkasika. So he says that when it comes to Maris Negoyim, what's the Maris Negoyim? This is leprosy. Leprosy. So what kind of maze? What could he have done that he should get lashes? He has leprosy. He has to hide away. He has to what kind of lashes did he get? The carbonite obligated, we know when he has to bring a sacrifice, right? But what about the lashes? So the Gemara answers, if the guy goes and cuts it off, right? He has a certain type, he has a leprosy, he's not allowed to touch it, he has to leave it in order to see. What if he goes and he takes it into his own hands, right? It's similar to the opinion of Rabbi Avin that says the name of Ilah. So anytime it says in the pasuk hishamer, which means be careful, right? Pen for it, that you shouldn't do something, right? Or al, don't do something. This is a negative commandment, right? The transgression, and therefore, when it says by the Mitzayda, hishamer b'nega tzaras, be careful with this nega. So someone that is not careful, he transgresses, and that is a leis of sin, and therefore he could get lashes in such a case. Okay, so now we have, according to Shmuel, that the case of lashes as well. The Gemara continues and asks, but Yitzis Shabbos, right? If someone does it inadvertently, what happens? In order to atone, he has to bring carbonite l'v'yayit, right? He has to bring a carbonite l'v'yayit. It's interesting, Tshuva today is very different than what it was in times of Beis Mikdash. In a way, they had it easier. In a way, we have it easier. In a way, they had it easier because they had to bring a sacrifice. Even though the Gemara, we learned this in the Gemara together, that the Gemara says that the main part of the sacrifice is the tshuva, the thought process that the guy does, which today we do without the sacrifice. But I would imagine that bringing a sacrifice to the temple inspires a person and brings a person to that level that they can do tshuva a little bit easier than today. And today we don't have to bring sacrifice, just have to have the thought. So which one is easier? I'm not sure, but still, it's an interesting thing for in and of itself. But if someone transgresses on Shabbos, right, which for every religious Jew it happens, right, by mistake all the time. I shouldn't say all the time. People are very, very careful, but it happens, right? I leaned against the wall one day on a Shabbos and I flicked the switch and the light went off, right? The worst of it is I've seen this happen, that someone by mistake and he felt like, oh my God, and he turned it back on. Right, but that's it's still that to make a mistake, it happens, right? And this is what the Mishnah is talking about. Shtaim shein arba. If someone by mistake carries on Shabbos from one domain to the other domain, right? So we say that from public to private, from private to public is what it says in the Torah, and Shein Arba, that also from private to public, from public to private, right? So that's the Shtaim Shein Arba when it comes to Shabbos, carrying on Shabbos. Now, that is, so if you did it inadvertently, you have to bring a sacrifice, a carbon elevator. What if you did it on purpose? Anybody know the halacha? If you did it on purpose, you don't want to know the halacha.
Yes, no?
Skila. So obviously, it's not just on purpose. It has to be with hasra, with warning, and have recognition of the warning, etc. But transgression of Shabbos is liable for skila. So now we're going back to Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Shmuel says that these are cases that have malchus if you did it on purpose. But here it's not malchus if you did it on purpose. You chayav skila. So my malchusika, when it comes to Yitzir Shabbos, when it comes to carrying on Shabbos, what kind of lashes could there be? So Lav Shnit Lazar's Misas Bezdinu. There's a Misas Bezdin here. There's death by the court. The whole Lav Shnit Lazar's Bezdin ain't like in a love. And there's a general rule that you can't give lashes for something that's liable for the death penalty, right? Mishul Machi Kamukmino. So the Gemara, so the Gemara answers. So it says that's why they put it in the name of Rabbi Shmuel, the Amar, because Rabbi Shmuel is of the opinion, and we learned this in Gemara Makis already. That he does hold that you could give lashes to someone that could be liable for the death penalty, right? So, by the way, what does it mean that he'd be liable for death penalty? It means that the witnesses said the wrong thing, right? The witnesses say, "Oh, you're not like carrying Shabbos. If you're carrying Shabbos, you get lashes." They didn't say you could get skila, so you could get lashes. And that's a scenario where, according to Rabbi Shmuel, you can get lashes. According to others, you can't get lashes because that's not the punishment for that kind of case. So you want to ask, so he says, hold on a second. We came to the conclusion that we're going to say this whole thing according to Rabbi Shmuel and not according to Rabbi Kiva, right? Why did we say that it can't be according to Rabbi Kiva? We learned already earlier in the Gemara, in the first class of the Gemara of this, we can't learn to Rabbi Kiva. Why? Because by Rabbi Kiva, we can't fit his opinion with Yidiyas HaTumah. Yidiyas HaTumah was about knowing if you're Tameh or not knowing if you're Tameh, knowing you're going to the Beis HaMikdash and not knowing if you're going to the Beis HaMikdash, right? Because in our Mishnah, it says Shtaim Shein Arba. It says that you can be liable for not knowing that you're Tameh or not knowing it's the Beis HaMikdash. Not knowing if you're Tameh, or not knowing that the food is consecrated, or in the past, right? So he said, but by Rabbi Kiva, his opinion is that it's only about not knowing your status, but not about not knowing the status of where you're going into, right? Or what you're eating. That he says you're not liable to bring a carbon, right? So he says that here we say that it's according to Rabbi Shmuel, even though we have a problem with Malchus when it comes to Yitzir Shabbos, we have a problem with his opinion on Malchus, on lashes when it comes to Yitzir Shabbos. So either one has one detail that is not fully fit with our Mishnah, whether Rabbi Kiva or Rabbi Shmuel. Both of them don't fit fully. They both have one detail. So he says, Lav Amaras, Rabbi Shmuel he umalkis, Rabbi Kiva nami umalkis. So the Gemara says that so he says that just like by Rabbi Shmuel, that he says that you don't need to bring a carbon. You don't need to bring a carbon on a past oath, on an oath that you made about the past, right? But what did we say according to Rabbi Shmuel? That even though you don't need to bring a carbon, but when it comes to malchus, when it comes to lashes, you would get lashes for the past, right? Because we talked about that idea. And so too, Rabbi Kiva, just because when it comes to the concept of not knowing that it's the Beis Hamikdash, and he was tummy, he went in, right? In that case, we said that Rabbi Kiva says that he doesn't have to bring a sacrifice. He says, yeah, but he can still get life. He did it on purpose, right? So both of them have a detail of a similar case, and we could say it according to Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Kiva. That's the idea of the Gemara over here. That's really, we could go back and bring it according to Rabbi Shmuel or Rabbi Kiva. So he says, 1 second, it shouldn't be yediyas, it shouldn't be about knowing, it should be about warning, right? Because you're talking about doing it on purpose, it should be warned, then person should know. You should learn it that it says yediyah, knowing, and asrais is part of it, meaning that the reason why he knew about it is because he was warned about it. Yeah. So he said, and so he says, but now it doesn't fit with the Mishnah, because when we say in the Mishnah, two that is 4, it's not 2 that is 4, it's 2 that is 2. The 2, and even more so, another question, so he asks a bunch of questions on the opinion of Rabbi Kiva. He asks that number 1, first of all, it's not Shaim Shein Arba, it's 2 that are 2, it's not 2 that are 4. The idea that it says in our Mishnah that someone knew that he was tummy, then forgot, then knew again, right? But our Mishnah, but if according to what we're saying over here, he's doing it b'mezid on purpose, so then he would get lashes. So what kind of forgetfulness do we talk about? He's doing it on purpose, right? He didn't forget, right? He didn't forget anything. And also, the Mishnah actually says that he has to bring a carbon out of the gate. It doesn't say that he gets lashes, which means that he didn't inadvertently, not on purpose. So this creates a problem that it's not. Basically, the Gemara is coming to a conclusion that's not Rabbi Shmuel and it's not Rabbi Kiva. That's it, right? We asked who's this Mishnah going according to, and we come to the conclusion that it's not Rabbi Shmuel and it's not Rabbi Akiva. So now Rabbi Yosef comes and tells you how it works over here. Rabbi Yosef says this whole Mishnah is not it's not any of the sages. It's Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi himself, the author of the Mishnah. He comes and he puts together a Mishnah of his own. And when he's coming to tell you his opinion, he's angry according to the sages. Of course, he's not saying only his own opinion. But idea is not like Rabbi Shmuel, but Bishvuz is not like Rabbi Kiva. When it comes to the Tamei idea, Shaim Shein Arba, he holds like Rabbi Shmuel, and when it comes to the oaths, then he holds like Rabbi Kiva, and that's why he brings. So it's really Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi's Mishnah. It's Rabbi's Mishnah, and Rabbi is telling it to you. And his opinions are based on other sages, but not all according to one sage. He heard this idea from Shmuel and he liked it, and he thought it was the right approach, so therefore he recorded it that way. And he heard this idea according to the name of Rabbi Kiva, and he liked it, and he went according to Rabbi Kiva in that way. So that's the way the Gemara answers. And it seems that this was a big conversation in the times of the Talmud, back and forth. This is the approach to the Mishnah, the beginning Mishnah in Talmud of Mishnayos of Shevuos. Rav Ashi. So now Rav Ashi, who's the one who put together the Gemara, right? Ravina and Rav Ashi were the ones who put together the Gemara. Rav Ashi comes and says, "Amrisa l'shmaita kamei Rav Kana." They said this statement in front of Rav Kana. What was the statement they said in front of Rav Kana? That this Mishnah is Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi's opinion, and sometimes he holds like Rabbi Shmuel, and sometimes he holds like Rabbi Kiva. And he says, no, change it a little bit. Like Tema, Rabbi Nasva Liva Tetanoi, don't say that Rabbi was putting his opinion according to the other sage, two sages, and he didn't have that opinion, like he was just giving you opinions of other sages. So he says, Rebbe is giving his own explanation. He's giving his own explanation. That Rebbe himself holds like Rabbi Ishmael when it comes to Yidisatoma, and when it comes to oaths, he holds like Rabbi Kiva. So it's not that he's saying, oh, I'm going to give you other people's opinion. No, this is Rebbe's opinion. Yeah, it happens to be the Tanya. Like we learned in our Brayso, how do you know that you need to that you're only liable for a sacrifice if you knew that you were tamei and then forgot and then you remembered afterwards, right? How do we know this? Because the pasuk says that you forgot twice. V'nelam. It says twice, right? So it means that you forgot, you remembered, and then you forgot. Sorry, no, that you remembered. Now that you remembered. Right? You knew. You had to know first that you were tamei.
Yeah, and then you forget.
Then you forget, and then you
remember it again.
Right? How you get? Because otherwise, if you didn't know, then you didn't know that you have to do tshuva on it, right? But that's the opinion of Rabbi Kiva. Dear Rabbi Kiva, Rabbi argues with Rabbi Kiva, and he says, "Ein tzarich." We don't need the pasuk to tell us that he forgot. Because the pasuk already says v'nelam. We're on daf dalil amud beis. The pasuk already says v'nelam. When it says that he forgot, Miklal the other, someone that forgot obviously knew at one point, right? It has to be that he knew. V'hu yada harikan shtei yediyos. So now, when it says v'hu yada in the pasuk that he did know, it's already a second knowing. So now, why does it say v'nelam twice? So now Rebbe says that, and he's going according to Rabbi Shmuel's opinion, that it's on two different types. The pasuk says twice v'nelam, so it's talking about two different types of scenarios where he could forget, whether it's forgetting that he is tamei or forgetting that he's going into the Beis Hamikdash, or forgetting that he's eating consecrated foods, right? And that's according to the opinion of Rabbi Shmuel, not according to Rabbi Kiva. And that's the argument that Rebbe has over here with Rabbi Kiva. Right, so we see that Rebbe has the opinion of Rabbi Shmuel. He doesn't say it in the name of Rabbi Shmuel. He has his own opinion, the way like Rabbi Shmuel. So the Gemara continues. Ashkechon b'yidiyos islay taimei denafshei. We find by tuma, by someone being tamei and going to the Beis Hamikdash or something like that, that Rebbe has his own reasoning. That he should be liable whether he forgot that he's tamei, or he forgot that he's going to the Beis Hamikdash, or he forgot that he was tamei, or that he forgot that what he's eating is consecrated food. But when it comes to Shevuos, when it comes to oaths, the islay taimei denafshei minola, where do we see his thought process when it comes to oaths, right? That he should be liable. Even for the past, an oath that he makes on something that happened in the past. So the Gemara answers Svara, who he does have a thought process. The Gemara is actually going to bring it up a little bit later of what's the Svara. We're going to get to it in a moment. But yeah, he has his own thought process of Svara for that. Anyways, we're not going to do the Lishon Achrin, that's the same idea. Okay, now we're going to get into a new concept. I mean, so we're continuing in this Gemara, but before I turned on the recording, we talked about this idea of Klal Prat and Riboy and Miyut. So now we're going to discuss this.
Okay.
Right. Okay. So let's give the first an introduction of Klal Prat, Uklal, and then the introduction of Riboy, Miyut, and Riboy. So if a pasuk is talking about something and it gives a generality, that's a klal. When you give a generality, it means that it includes the general idea of it, right? So that is, so let's give an example. If the pasuk has to say an example that's connected, the pasuk says that so and so is he's gonna have to pay. Pay is a generality. Doesn't say how he's going to pay, what he's going to pay. Right? It's very general, very, very general. But then the pasuk could give a prat and could constrict it, right? And if the prat, so now you have a generality that goes through a sifter, so to speak, right? And now there's something specific. Okay, so now what do? We go according to the specific. The specific limits the generality. Okay, so if the pasuk says he's going to have to pay, but then the pasuk says he has to pay money, so then it has to be money, right? It's got to be money. Now, what if the pasuk again brings up a generality that he has to pay? Let's say, right? We're going to see examples in a minute, right? So then it could add to that generality, the specific, that it should be something similar to the specific. Okay, so now if you have a generality, so that means that it could be in a very general form, right? That it could be all the little details, all the details in the general form. A specific comes to limit it just to the specific, right? A generality afterwards comes to say that the specific is not just the specific, anything that's similar to that specific. So klal is everything, prat is something specific, and then if there's another klal, it adds to the specific, but not everything, just something that's similar to the specific. Okay, that is klal, prat, klal.
You're talking about something that has the value of.
So in the form of money, so once you have, so the klal can be paid with anything. Once you say it's money, so then it has to be only money. But then if there's a generality, pay with anything, so say no, but it has to be similar to money. It has to have similar characteristics to money. So therefore, you can't pay with a piece of land. A piece of land, it has value, but it does not money, right? That's the kind of thing that we're going to see it in the Gemara in a minute, right? But if it just says pay, however, anything that has a value, right? It doesn't need to be money. Okay, let's talk about ribuy and miut. So ribuy and miut is the same concept in the pasuk, that you have a ribuy, a generality, a miut, something that comes to close that generality, right? It's not. It's coming. It's only meaning that if it says to pay and then it says with money, it's not coming to limit it just money. It's coming to say. Not every form of payment is acceptable. That's what it's coming to say. That's the miut, right? And so it's very interesting how this works, right? Yeah. And then if there's another ribuy afterwards, that's a generality, another ribuy. So we say. That the miut is only coming to exclude one thing. Again, let's do ribuy miut again. Ribuy miut is like this. You have a generality, let's say he has to pay. But then the pasuk says kesef, that it should be money, right? So according to ribuy miut, it says kesef means money, so anything similar to money. Meaning there's a generality, pay anything, but then it says money, okay, so anything that's similar to money. But then there's a ribuy afterwards, right? So what do we say then? So we say that not just anything similar to money, the miut is only to cancel one form of payment. Okay, so two different ways. Klal prat klal is one way, and ribuy miut is another way. It will come clear as we see it in the Gemara. If you have a question, specific question about it, ask. But otherwise, let's see it inside. Rabbi Kiva, my taima kamechayv l'shavar. So the Gemara asks, Rabbi Kiva, he says that you're liable if you make an oath on something that you did previously, right? Say, like for example, I did eat breakfast this morning, right? I promise, I swear, right? If someone says it like that I did eat breakfast this morning, right? According to Rabbi Shmuel, you're not liable for the past. And according to Rabbi Kiva, you are. So Rabbi Kiva says the darish ribuy miyutin because he darshans a ribuy and a miyut. So how does he darshan ribuy and miyut? I'll tell you. The pasuk says, "Oy nefesh kisi shava levati v'svasayim lahara oy lahetiv l'chal sheyivate adam b'shvua." Pasuk says a person that makes an oath, that swears with his mouth, positive or negative, but it says it in the future tense. Lahara oy lahetiv, right? L'chal sheyivate adam b'shvua, anything that a person swears. So what do we have over here? Kisi shava. If someone swears, that's a generality. Lahara lehetiv, right, is a miut. Lahara lehetiv is constricting it because it's saying only something on future tense, right? And then it says anything that a person says is a riboy, right? So we have a pasuk that has, first of all, a generality, any oath, but then it says no, but only future oath. Lahara lehetiv. It mentions a miut, something only in the future tense, right? And then it says, but any oath that a person makes. So Rabbi Kiva learns that since there's the riboy at the end, so he's also adding on past, right? That's someone that says, yeah. What's the miut? The miut is if he makes an oath, lahara lehetiv, is a miut. So what if someone makes an oath that I'm not going to do a mitzvah? Someone makes an oath, I'm not going to put on film tomorrow morning. Cancelled. Never made such an oath. It never took place. Where do we take that from? That's the miut of lahara lehetiv according to Rabbi Kiva. And then the Gemara continues. Rabbi Nami darush riboy miyute, and the Rebbe also darshans riboy miyut and not klal prat klal. By the way, if you darshan the same thing, klal prat klal, you have a very different halacha, right? Because let's go through the same pasuk with klal prat klal. The klal is nefesh kisishav. If someone makes an oath, that's a general thing. The prat is that it's only in the future tense, right? And then he says a general thing. So it could only come to be something similar, something future. It can't be, it could add something as something similar to future tense, but it can't add past tense in a klal prat klal. So Rabbi Kiva says this, and Rebbe also holds this svara, and that's why Rebbe puts in our Mishnah that when it comes to an oath, you're also liable on an oath that you made in past tense. How do we know that Rebbe holds riboy miyut and not klal prat klal? The Tanya, because we learned Rebbe oimer b'koil paidin b'cher adam chutz min hashtaris, that when it comes to the firstborn son, you have to do pidin haben, right? You have to redeem the firstborn son because originally they were going to be a kohen. They were going to serve in the temple. They belonged to the kohen. So we redeem with 5 coins. Today we do it with 5 coins. Rebbe comes and says that you can use anything. You can use any financial value to give to the kohen. You can tell the kohen, I'm redeeming my son I'm giving you this piece of land that I am, right? Anything. The only thing that you can't use is a promissory note, a shtar. Meaning a loan, right? I gave Yankel a loan. He signed off that he owes me $100. I can't say, okay, Kohen, here you could take this loan. Now Yankel owes it to you. Instead of giving cash, right? But he says anything else works except for promissory notes. Rabbanan Amri, the sages say, he says that the sages say, no, you could use anything, but you can't use servants, shtaris, which is promissory notes that we just mentioned, and karkois, also land you can't use. My time of the Rebbe says, where does Rebbe come to his conclusion and Rabbanan and the sages come to their conclusion? So Rebbe darish riboy miyute. Rebbe uses riboy miyut. We're going to see in a moment that the Rabbanan use klal prat klal. So therefore, they come to a different halacha depending on which system you use for the pasuk. So let's see Rebbe first. First, let's see the pasuk. The pasuk says, if we have it in the Gemara, upduyav mi ben chodesh, that from a month old you're supposed to redeem them, right? Riba, that pduyav, to redeem. The pasuk doesn't say how to redeem. It's a very general thing. Any way you want to redeem, any cash value, whether it's a piece of land or anything else, you could use, right? That's riba. That's the first part of the pasuk. But then the pasuk continues, right? The pasuk, by the way, just so you know the pasuk says like this: from a pduyav to redeem, even chaydesh from a month. Tifta, you shall redeem. Those are two generalities. And then the pasuk continues, that it has to be the value of five silver coins. That's why today we use 5 silver coins, right? But there's two generalities, pduyav and tifta, and then kesef, the financial value is the limitation of it, right? So the pasuk says that it has to be 5 coins, meaning it has to be kesef. That's miyut. That's a miyut, right? And then the pasuk continues. Sorry, it's even earlier in the pasuk. Tifta. There's a general statement of the pasuk that you shall redeem. Chazav riba. That's a generality, right? Riba umiyut v'riba. There was a generality. There is a limitation on that generality, and now there's a generality again. So riba. So first, riba is that everything is valid. Everything is valid to redeem the firstborn. So riba koil, riba koil, everything works except for, based on the miyot, one thing. The miyot only comes to represent one thing. What did Rebbe say? Right? So my riba komile. So what did it include? Any type of payments, right? Anything that has financial value, you could use to pay. Well, my miyot, and what did they exclude? What was that? The kesef coming to exclude. We said it could only in ribo miyot, in ribo and miyot, it could only come to exclude one thing. What did it come to exclude? Miyot shtaris. It's coming to exclude promissory notes. Why? Because they're not real money. They're not real, right? It's not. It's a piece of paper. It's not a piece of land has real value, right? But a piece of paper, it's not the same. So that is Rebbe's opinion. That when it comes to so we see from here that the Rebbe's opinion in general is ribo yamiyot and not klal prat to klal. But we're not done yet, because now we're going to learn the sages, the sages, the Rabbanon, their opinion. Rabbanon darshi klali uprati. The sages, they learn the same pasuk, obviously, the same pasuk that tells us that you have to redeem the firstborn, but they learn that pasuk in a different system. They learn it with the klal uprat. So let's look at the pasuk again. When it says that you should redeem the firstborn after a month, that's a klal, it's a generality. Then the pasuk says that there's a limitation. It has to be 5 coins. It has to be money. Prat. That's a detail, right? And then tifta chazav kolal. So then it says, tifta that you shall redeem, which is a generalization. So there's another klal. So klal prat to klal. Iatadon elakeina prat, as it says in the Mishnah of Rabbi Shmuel. Iatadon elakeina prat. So you learn from here that it has to be something similar to the prat. The second klal comes to add anything that's similar to the prat. The prat was money, right? So what's similar to money? Ma prat meferesh davra metaltal v'gufay mamin. Just like the prat, the detail is very clear that it is money. So what is money? What's the detail? That it's movable. Metaltal, you could move it, and it's actually value. It's gufay mamin. That it's money. Av kol davra metaltel v'gufay mamin. Anything that is movable and it has financial value. It's money. It's considered, it can be considered to be money, and you can use that to redeem the firstborn. So obviously, so what yatsu karkois shena metaltelin? First of all, fields, someone's field is not movable. So that's it. It's out. You can't use that. Yatsu avadim shukashula karkais. A person's ownership of a servant is similar to his ownership of fields, and therefore That's also out, and Yotzu Shtares, that even that when it comes to promissory notes, when it comes to contracts, right? Even though it's movable, it's a piece of paper, it can move, but ain gufon mamain, it is not considered to be money. So this is the idea of, so we learned the idea of klal prat klal, we learned the idea of riboy and miot, and we see from here that Rebbe holds to go according to the system of riboy and miot, which fits very well with our Mishnah. That's why he takes Rabbi Kiva's opinion in that part of the Mishnah, because he holds riboy and miot. And then the Gemara is going to continue, which we're going to do Mitzvah Shem next week. The Gemara is going to continue and say, really, do you really think that the Rebbe only holds riboy and miot? Maybe he holds klal, and we're going to get more into that next class. So we are we're about 5-6 lines from the bottom of Daf Daled Amud Beis.